Uh, a very good evening to everybody, or good morning, depending on good afternoon, depending on where you might be watching this and at whatever time of the day you're watching this. We are back. This is MCHC YouTube channel once more for you, Shugato Haldar, as your host this time. We have today a very, very special person to talk to. This is one such part of the conversation series that we are trying to do. And if you go back to our channel, you'll find one such already uploaded, and here will be a second one. You can already see on the screen a very dapper and a salt and pepper hair gentleman sitting there. His name is Mr. Rajesh Nath. And if I'm not mistaken, Rajesh, you belong to Kolkata. That's what I heard. Was that right?
Yeah, I've spent most of my life, Shugato, in Kolkata. A good part of my life. I've done my schooling.
The reason, wonderful. The reason I say that is because I belong to Kolkata. So there's somewhere a sense of closed loop there. It's a small world.
Absolutely.
I think it will be wonderful to introduce Rajesh, and he has a checkered career. I don't know where to start, and allow me to look away from the screen and on my note, because it's a long profile. I don't want to miss anything. So let me briefly introduce him to all of you. Mr. Rajesh Nath has more than about 3 decades of experience already in both Germany and in India. And he has accorded, this is the most important, he has been accorded the Cross of the Order of Merit. Did I read that right, Rajesh?
That's right, thank you.
Yeah, Cross of the Order of Merit, which is the highest civilian award given for the German president for promoting Indo-German trade, and particularly in the engineering sector. He has a degree, he's a Bachelor of Engineering, Mechanical Engineering. He also is a gold medalist in Management Science. He has also done a special course in IIM, Kolkata, IIM, no, not, it's IIM Kolkata, right?
Yeah.
In 2004.
Kolkata, yes, IIM Kolkata.
Yeah, and while he has worked in the initial part of his career in Germany, but for most part of his career, I think since the last 2 decades, he has been the head of the VDMA, as it is conversely it's called German Engineering Federation. And he has been there from 1999. And during this period, interestingly, he has been able to grow the Indo-German trade to almost like 6x to what it was when he came on board. And today, apart from all this, of course, he also has active interest in an NGO, which is called Kadam, which is providing livelihood solutions to women and youth. So I can go on. I mean, this can go on, but Rajesh, pardon me, I'll take a break here because I see a lot of other bullets, but I'm deliberately kind of going a little quick on that because there's so many things to say otherwise. So I hope.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Shugato, and thank you for having me on the show today. And greetings to all our viewers also who would be viewing this video or who have joined this. So thank you, Shugato.
My pleasure and privilege to have you here, Rajesh, and lovely to have you, seriously. And what we shall do is that, given your exhaustive experience and background in this sector, and especially in Indo-European / Indo-German trade domain, let me first take this conversation up on that context only. So you've been in the Indo-German trade development over many years now. Now, if you could ask you, how do you see this field A in the current scenario, how it is going to be in the next few years, if you can kind of do a crystal ball gazing, and maybe build into that the context of the COVID, which is the talk of the town. Given the current pandemic, how do you see this trade moving forward? You have done this wonderful work of 6x multiplier in the last couple of years, maybe a decade plus. Do you see that trend continuing? Do you see that dipping? Or if it has to continue, if anything specific has to be done by the industry here, etc. I mean, I want you to spend a couple of minutes, 5-7 minutes talking about this. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Shugato. And it's one of my pet subjects also, since I've been associated with the Indo-German trade for so many years, Shugato. Yeah. Let me start, Shugato. I think that highlights the journey also, or the development of the Indo-German trade. I remember when I started working with the VDMA, which is the German Engineering Federation. So first time way back in the 90s when I went to Germany to our headquarters and met up our members. So the first few years, the regular question was, why do we need to come to India? So I was trying to promote India as a market for the future. So the first question was, what is the reason? Why do we need to come to India?
Thank God you didn't face, where is India? India who? That was on the lighter note. Sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see how this feeling for India has transformed over the years, Shugato.
Sure.
And now in the last, I would say 7 or 8 years, it's no more a question of why do we need to come to India, but it's a question of when can we come to India and where would it be good for us to start the business. So I think we've seen a very positive development of the German trade or Indo-German relationships over the years. And even when we look at our association, what I head here in India, the German Engineering Federation. So when I had joined about 20 years back, we had almost, I would say, around 200 members who were in India. Now, over the years, this number has increased to almost 600 members or companies.
That's big.
Yeah, and still we have only touched a portion of the German companies. I think there is still potential, and that's what we are working on also, Shogato, is to increase the presence of German companies in India in the engineering sector. And a positive aspect is also, Shogato, it is not only trade in one direction. It's not only German exports coming to India, but we have also seen a good increase of exports from India to Germany also in engineering products. In fact, this is growing at a rate of almost 8 to 10% year on year. And it also, when the German companies come to India, Shogato, in fact, it opens a sea of opportunity also for the local domestic companies.
But obviously.
Because they are looking to source in India, they are looking for suppliers in India.
Right.
And we have over the years this relationship which perhaps starts in India, then carries forward to other countries also. So it's basically a win-win situation what we have seen. And the growth also has been phenomenal of the Indo-German trade. It is roughly around 19 billion euros presently, and growing at the rate of about almost 4 to 5% year on year. And the engineering or the machinery sector, which we specifically represent, constitutes almost 1/3 of this bilateral trade. And in, for example, in 2018, we had a growth of almost about 9% of the German machinery exports to India. So I think it's, as I said, it's been a very positive development. And let me come now to the second part of your question, the impact of COVID. Yes, COVID has had an impact. There is, as we all know, the global supply chain has been disrupted badly. The global economy has been disrupted. In fact, India, if you look at the Indian economy, already in 2019-20, our GDP growth slowed down to around 4.5%.
Absolutely.
With the predictions now, with the impact of COVID, we went through one of the most severe lockdowns. I would say we are in a state of Chakravyuh. Whether you look at the health of the people or you look at the economic condition.
Yeah, I'm smiling, but that's only because it's a sad smile, actually. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I think it goes back, if we take a step back and look at Mahabharata, I think that was one of the, how do you come out of this Chakravyuh? I think this is what we are facing presently in India. Okay. But I think what is good is when we talk about Make in India, or we talk of the present slogan of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the German companies have been manufacturing in India, and they have been, this Make in India is not a term which is new to the German companies. We have a lot of examples, companies like Siemens, like Bosch.
Siemens and Bosch have been here for, I think, ages, in some form or the other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And perhaps a change, what COVID would have, or an impact, a positive impact, if I may add so, Shogato, is I think as we go ahead, we may have more German companies who are present in India look to source or to develop their supply chain, supplier base in India, rather than being impacted by these global supply chain disruptions. What COVID has really opened the eyes and shown that certainly what we thought earlier, that having a global supply chain was beneficial. But now I think the thought process is having your supplier base closer to your production or to your consumer is perhaps the new mantra now. And I think this is what we would see also going ahead, that perhaps German companies would look to strengthen their supply base here in India. And I think this is a good step forward for the Indo-German trade also as we go ahead.
Lovely. I think insightful words. Let me pick up one or two threads from there. But before
Sure.
I do that, one more additional point. Do you see, for example, we have seen in the last maybe a decade plus minus, a lot of, especially apart from the ones that you mentioned who have been in India for a while, for quite some time, in fact, in some form or the other, Siemens, Bosch, etc., and few others,
Right.
there have been those blue chip automakers who have also come over in the last decade or so, if I consider them as definitely as part of core engineering sector. And they have their manufacturing hub, or at least in some form, some manufacturing hub based in India now. Some of the top brands of the German market, German country, are here in India. And why I mention this is that now that you say that the supply chain can be made closer to production, the fact that these automobile makers and equally others who have a need for a strong supply chain from local players, if possible, would that also help possibly the local players to develop their business, because the automakers and equivalent others are slowly coming into it, have already come in or are planning to come in more and more, and make India maybe an important hub, more so now with what is happening with the exit of business from China in general sense.
All right, very good question, Shogato. Let's just take a broader view rather than it only to German companies, Shogato.
Sure.
See, if you look at the automotive industry in India, we are quite dependent on imports from China. In fact, 28% of all the global imports in automotive sector, what India has, comes from China. Right. So the dependency on China is quite high, specifically for the automotive industry.
Right.
And going ahead, even when we look at, as you rightly mentioned, most of the German OEMs, be it Volkswagen, be it Daimler, Mercedes, be it BMW, they all have a production base in India.
Correct.
And I think what is important is I think all the manufacturers would look to increase the level of localization in India, Shogato.
That's right.
And this is where there is going to be tremendous opportunity, business potential, also for Indian suppliers to become suppliers to these German OEMs or European OEMs or global OEMs. So I think, as you correctly say, it's going to be a huge potential, a huge market, and a very good opportunity. In fact, this is an opportunity the Indian enterprises, especially our SME, MSME companies should also grasp with both hands, because this is a golden opportunity we have presently as we go ahead, and as this stress on localization comes up, or focus on localization. So the SMEs and the Indian suppliers should try to encash on this opportunity. And we have to be careful, because as we look at, in fact, when COVID hit India, also one of the focus of the Indian government was to try to attract foreign investments.
Correct.
And they were talking about companies moving out from China to India.
That's right.
Companies sourcing from China to look at India. But then we have a strong competition also from the Southeast Asian countries.
Absolutely.
Let me quote the study, Nomura study that was done in 2019.
Okay.
It showed that from around, I think, 56 or 58 companies that moved out of China in 2019. In fact, only 3 came to India.
Correct. I read it somewhere, right?
Yes. The largest share went to Indonesia and
Vietnam.
Vietnam itself got 24 to 26 companies. So I think this is where the challenge for India is going to be, that we have to build our local competence here in India to make India a hub for manufacturing. And we would face this challenge from the Southeast Asian countries. So that is why it is important that we build our resilience here, as well as the role of the government to ease investments coming into India. And we have already seen, Shogato, that some of these states have been proactive. We have, for example, Karnataka with coming out with these labor reforms, the land reforms.
Precisely.
So I think these are good steps in the right direction. But I think also the central government would need to take certain steps to attract foreign investments to India.
The ease of doing business, as we call it, the index need to become better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And all the parameters within that. Just picking up this point, therefore, in this COVID context and the fact that there is now, it's more an opportunity that we must grasp as a nation and as an engineering sector, just not Germany, but also Germany, of course, because that's one of the key investors for us so far in general. But would you have any data? I don't, so maybe a wrong question without preparation, but would there be any data as to how much of the FDI that Germany brings in, not in necessarily volume terms, but in terms of value or volume, whichever works? I don't know if that's a easy question.
Among the European, yes, Shogata, among the European countries, Germany is certainly the forerunner. All the European countries. And in fact, I would say we have over the years now, presently somewhere around 1,400 to 1,500 German companies having a base in India.
In some
and yes. And if I may add, Shogata, a trend which I have seen in the last few years, earlier when the German companies were coming to India, they were initially looking at setting up sales and service offices. But now in the last 7 to 8 years, the trend has been they want to set up their own manufacturing facility.
Precisely.
So that means they are ready to invest in India. It is a long-term commitment to the Indian market. And they are looking to set up their base. And in fact, if I may add, in the last 3 or 4 years, what we have seen also, Shogata, which is a very positive development, is many of these German companies are making India as center of excellence for some of the machineries or products. So that means as center of excellence, these machines are being manufactured only in India and being supplied from India for the global market. I think a very positive trend what we are seeing, and I'm sure as we go ahead, we would see more and more of this happening, that more companies look at making certain machines, specific machines, only in India and making it as India as a center of excellence. And then from India, these machines would be exported for their global requirements. Also, when we look at R&D sectors, Shogata, I think this is very important also that, for example, Mercedes-Benz now have a full-fledged research and development center here in India. And I don't know the exact figures, but I think it's more than around 8 to 10,000 people are employed here in India for the R&D. And I think beyond Germany, this is perhaps the largest R&D center they have. So
8 to 10,000 is a big number from an employee, number of employee perspective by any standard.
Right, and only for R&D. This is a center only for R&D.
It's a COE basically, center.
That's right. And I think we have many such examples, and I think these are good trends, what we are seeing, good examples, what we are seeing, which show the commitment to Indian market on a long-term basis, and also gives good employment opportunity for the Indians also here in India, as well as many times then they are also sent overseas for certain projects. So I think this is a win-win situation both sides.
Wonderful, because again, one kind of gives me another cue. You mentioned center of excellence, and that's an interesting thought, because if Germany is looking at us as a COE, I see it in two parts. One is that they have confidence on the kind of quality of both manpower and infra that we have on the one hand. But on the other hand, this is where I want to link it back in today's world. And this is something I personally talk a lot about in my own seminars on as one of my pet subjects is Industry Revolution 4.0, and within that AI and 3D printing and everything else. I'm not getting into details. So for us to remain a COE for especially brands which are at the forefront of technology, you mentioned Mercedes-Benz, just one name, there could be so many others. Do you think, or are we really there in terms of leveraging, or are we already up there in the top few in terms of using Industry Revolution, because it's Industry Revolution 4.0 already is upon us? Are we technologically using AI, using artificial intelligence or equivalent other modern technologies as a nation, as a player, or in some part which will ensure that we keep on attracting and staying a center of excellence preference point for such brands.
Right.
Are we
Thank
really
you. I
there,
think a very deep and a very valid question, Shugato. If we look at, let's be honest, if we look at the present scenario in India, the level of automation is quite low in India.
Absolutely.
If you look at, for example, robos, Shugato, so the number of India, it's 4 robos per 10,000 workforce in India.
Correct.
And this is unfortunately it's one of the lowest among the BRIC countries, but also if you look among the Asian countries, the penetration of robos is amongst the lowest in India. I'll also give some statistics to that. So in 2019, for example, approximately globally about 4.2 lakh robos were sold globally. And in India, we had roughly around 4 and 4,500 only. Whereas our neighbors like China, for example, almost 250,000 robos were sold in China in 2019. So against that in India, we had only 4,500 robos. So the penetration of robos or level of automation is quite low presently in India. But now I think with the pandemic coming in and what we are facing is this shortage of labor, the migrant labor having gone back to their hometowns.
Precisely.
And the industry facing, especially, for example, the automotive industry is facing a shortage of labor, as well as these new norms coming in with social distancing. Also on the workforce, you have to maintain the social distancing. So I think it is a good opportunity now, Shugato. And what I strongly believe is that what the Indian companies, the Indian MSMEs, SME sector, because we know our SME, MSME sectors are not financially so strong.
That's right.
So going the whole route of automation may be difficult for them. So what is required is they have to look at what are the low-lying fruits now in automation. What are some simplified applications that can be adopted in automation? You correctly mentioned about Industry 4.0, Shugato. And one of the important aspects of Industry 4.0 is, for example, remote monitoring or condition monitoring.
Precisely.
Where you have certain sensors, for example, you capture the data regarding vibration, temperature of the bearings, and you can from remote monitor this. Now, this is where these are simple applications. For example, a sensor to monitor or to capture the data for temperature and vibration. These are not very costly applications. And these simple steps, in fact, will benefit the MSME and the SME sector more, Shugato, because if a machine breakdown happens, a larger company, for example, can withstand this breakdown of machine.
Yeah, but really difficult for MSME.
Absolutely, Shugato. That is where I think certain applications of Industry 4.0 can certainly benefit the MSMEs. And that is what they have to look at, adopting some simplified steps in automation and utilizing that to have a faster return of ROI, return of investments. And this is not so difficult. And you can do that, but only you need people. Of course, you have to be guided on what are the steps, what are required. And this is where the SME and MSME sector has to be open to adopting these applications in automation.
I guess also, sorry.
I think is one of the biggest roles of Industry 4.0, as you correctly mentioned, Shugato, that certain aspects can be adopted by the MSME and they can get a quick return of investment also.
I would like to come to one of my last points that I wanted to touch on this conversation. And maybe I want to do a phase 2 later, but we'll talk about that later. But for today, because I think this conversation needs a little deeper level of discussion for the benefit of everyone who might be listening. So maybe we'll come back later if we time otherwise permitting, etc. We'll talk about it offline. But for the moment, what you say here is important. So therefore, for any organization who are into any kind of either human capital development or business development work in terms of either consulting or training or what have you in India, how should they plan going about, doing their work? How can they value add to these organizations? Where could they look for opportunities to provide their expertise in context of what you just said? Are these the areas? Are there something else they should look at? So how would you give 5, 6, 3, 4, 5 pointers for them as to how should they go about doing their work in terms of looking at what could be the areas of business, and how should they skill up their own people, etc.?
Right. Very good question, Shogatu, and a very deep question also. In fact, I think, Shogatu, I firmly believe we were using the term VUCA very liberally.
Yeah.
Really understanding what was the impact. And it is now only
that we realize the seriousness, because see, what happens is, moment there is a new jargon on the table, everybody jumps at it without really
absolutely
realizing.
I think it was a new term. It was a sexy term. VUCA was a nice term to use. Everybody was using it in the last 2-3 years quite liberally. But I think it is only in the last 4 months that what we have, the unprecedented, that is where we are really understanding what uncertainty means.
Absolutely.
I think this is what we are facing. And I think one message I would like to leave behind, Shogatu, is we need to adapt now to change.
That's right.
This is the lesson that COVID has taught us. I think earlier people were looking, for example, as even taking the reference what you have just mentioned, we were looking at offices, having offices in various locations, looking at modifying offices, setting up offices in various sales offices, consultants being placed in various locations. And now all that is gone, work from home. I have thought that work from home can be so effective. So I think what pandemic has really taught us is we have to be open to change. And I think the biggest difference that has come is you were earlier looking at solutions to problems.
Right.
The problems are also changing so dramatically today. So what solutions are you going to look at? Because the reference point itself has shifted so dramatically.
And shifting continuously. It's like a quicksand.
The only constant factor is the change now. And I think that is where we have to be very open, and we have to think out of the box, Shogatu. And as I said, work from home, the new normal coming in. So that is what I would also, maybe I think we were looking at specialization. Maybe we do not need any specialization. We need now more people who have skilled in diverse fields rather than specialists in one field. And people who have, I think even for the leaders, I think one of the important aspects is the foresight, what is required, resilience and foresight. I think that is what agility and ability to change. I think this is going to be the new mantra now as we go ahead.
For any and most organization, that would be required if you have to survive. I think COVID, as you rightly said, has kind of what might have been a fancy word to talk about in seminars has now become a goddamn reality, that you are pushed into that. Whether you like it or not, beg, borrow, steal, you have no option now. So therefore, do you think for human capital development or for any such work, for the organization when they engage with experts from outside or whatever? So tomorrow, if I have to go to an organization and say, hey, you know what, I can help you with human capital development, or I can help you with your business development. I think what you are saying is, if I heard you right, is that the first thing that one should look at as an organization or the consulting organization should suggest is that let me help you become more agile, quote unquote. Let me help you become more flexible, adaptive.
Absolutely.
Those are the words that I'm picking up from what you are saying. And those are the cornerstones of success going forward, beyond the obvious few things that you need to be there anyway. Is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely, exactly. I think you've really framed it very well, Shogatu, because as I said, the reference point itself has changed. Precisely. So you don't have a fixed reference point now. So unless you are flexible, unless you are agile, you are ready to change, because the problems will keep on changing now as we go ahead. And I think that is where the question of flexibility surely comes up, is that you need to be more flexible, because today we have in fact, many call the COVID as the black swan. But I recently read an article where somebody termed it as the gray rhino, saying that it was something that was expected to come. To look at the history of pandemics, something like this was expected. Mm-hmm. And it has It like a rhino, like a grey rhino. It has come. It has, in fact, hit all of us so strong. We are sitting on top of the grey rhino.
Way back in school, this grey rhino reminds me. We read that phrase in school called "bull in a china shop," and
Right.
that reminds me of that again. You know, it's literally a bull in a china shop. You know, it's not waiting or listening to anything and anybody. Great. Before we conclude, Rajesh, last few words. Therefore, as a chamber head in India, I know you look at the engineering sector. I understand that. So therefore,
Right.
engineering sector particularly, the takeaway I have is that COVID, yes, but still there's a lot of opportunities for the Indian SMEs and MSMEs, particularly from a supply side perspective. One, two, for human capital development, etc., especially for the organization, both in terms of people and process to become more agile and flexible is an order of the day. And anybody who can help the organization to become that better is something that a good expert might want to do, second, or would be required to do. The organization would be wanting to do that.
Right.
And third, my last question, therefore, is that if you look at the industry 4.0 scenario where we have, and therefore, and COVID, both this, I think, would you agree that put both this together, making this change not only a reality, but it's an extremely fast change. Both put together is one complementing the other. I mean, industry 4.0 was anyway making things change very fast. And now we have COVID, which is press the accelerator faster, harder. So both put together, do you think are accelerating the whole dynamism more?
Absolutely. I think again, a very valid point, Shugata, what you have mentioned, because one is that industry 4.0 is to enable you in your business processes. We are creating certain, as I said, systems in place which can enable your business process, improve your productivity. As I just gave this example of remote monitoring.
That's
so
right.
Basically, you reduce your breakdown, you have a better control on your product as well as your productivity. Now, with the COVID coming in, we are seeing a lot of as this uncertainty factor. And so what we need to do now is look at opportunities or options for risk mitigation, because the risks are very high. So you need to have certain processes where your risk can be mitigated to a large extent. Of course, you can't mitigate all the risk, but certain risks can be mitigated. And that is where I think the role of automation or Industry 4.0, because after all, Industry 4.0 inculcates a lot of steps like IoT, machine learning, data analysis. Like data is one of the strong components.
Big data would be the order of the
4.0.
day. Right? Absolutely.
Absolutely. But everywhere, I think one point is that the human capital, the value of human capital will always remain, Shogato.
Naturally.
And that is where we have to concentrate also, because even if you're going for automation, but at the end, somebody has to oversee the data, analyze the data. And that is where I think the human capital plays an important, the value of human capital would always remain. And I think this marriage of, that's what, as VDMA, we have a very strong slogan. We call it humans, machines, and progress, mentioning that the humans build machines and humans with the machines together would help in the progress of the society, in the progress of a nation, in the progress of the economy. This is our mantra at VDMA. And I think this is the way forward, that closer interaction between machines and humans. And just let me end with one example here, Shugata. The collaborative robots, we call it the new generation is the cobos or the collaborative robots.
Correct.
Now, we are moving from the traditional robots, which were large in size, which were fixed, and we are moving towards collaborative robots, which work hand in hand with humans together. That's why it is a collaborative effort. And this is where the option of flexibility and agility comes, because these robots are very flexible. They can be easily moved from one place to another place, and they are very agile also and very easy to function. You need, I was hearing one of the presentations where they said that in 4 hours, somebody can really learn how to operate these cobots.
Correct.
And these can be also operated by people who have studied till class 10. So again, I see this a huge opportunity. And many of these COBOs are also being handled by women. So I think women empowerment, getting women in our workforce, we have only 26% of the women are employed in the workforce. So we need to substantially increase the ratio of women coming in the workforce. And I think these are good opportunities, new opportunities that are emerging. And one needs to grasp these opportunities and have an open mind, I think out of the box, have an open mind. So that would be my concluding statement.
Lovely, because I think it's a very positive note to conclude. Therefore, as I always say, I think one liner that I have from what you said is that many people worry that because of Industry 4.0, now COVID over and above, that many jobs will go. Prima facie, yes, but what I always say is that jobs will go, but new jobs will come. Different kinds of jobs will come. As you rightly said, it's a collaboration between man and machine. So yeah, the job as we understand it today might not be there, but a new job might come, which is, let's say, operating a cobot. And that's a new skill. As long as I'm, again, as an individual, flexible enough to learn new skills, I'm home and dry as far as employability is concerned in general sense. And I think that's a happy and a positive note to end on. I think it's been half an hour now. I promised only I'll take half an hour of your time. It's past half hour. Thank you for your time. This was a very cursory conversation. I know the topic needs more time. Maybe post this, Rajesh, I will connect with you offline, and maybe time and opportunity permitting for both of us, why don't we have another extended conversation, which is part 2 of this. But for today, I have taken you more than 5 minutes extra of your promised time. So my apologies, but it was lovely to talk to you. And I look forward to a second session on this.
Thank you so much, Shogato. And it was a pleasure interacting with you, and all the very best. I would say stay safe, stay well, and above all, stay optimistic. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you so much. All the very best. Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.